What is going on? I finally finished my new desk setup. I'm loving it. Got a new light over there from IKEA, camera stuff. Tried to keep it as simple as possible. Also, finished my new computer build, got my new monitor. So everything's kind of coming into place and starting to look good. Next thing is definitely gonna be a stand-up desk, but I'm gonna have to wait a little bit to get that one. Anyway, that's not why you clicked on this video. The reason you clicked on this video is one, you just like looking at me, it's a very real possibility. Who wouldn't? Or two, you want to learn how I edit. I figured since I got my new computer setup going, got my whole new desk, I feel really good about it. I decided I'm going to do a little bit more of a deep dive on how I edit my photos and, give you guys some tips and tricks on how to make your photos look like mine. So right off the bat, you might notice I am using Windows now. I love Apple products, love them to death. Just made more sense for me to go with this. One for photo, video editing. I know Mac is amazing for that. But I decided to go with this for the photo and video editing side of things, and also so I can play some games with my friends. Anyway, that's a completely different topic. This photo is one that I took a little while ago for 3 of Strong. They're located in Portland, Maine. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to check them out. I'm going to show you guys kind of a little bit more of an in-depth process of how I take this photo and have it look like something that I would actually use in the future or give to a client. So first things first, what I'm going to do, I like to start with this generic photo, and I'm going to bring it into Photoshop and start doing things to it from there. So let's go ahead, we'll click Photo, edit in Adobe Photoshop 2021. So the reason I'm pulling it into there, I like to take that original photo and take it into Photoshop, go through, eliminate anything I want, add a mask or something over top of the photo. If I want to add snow or something beforehand, that way I can have the original size of the photo and crop it any way I want afterward. I learned the hard way a few times, cropping it and then bringing it in here and doing it, because you're going to save over top of that, which is then not going to let you crop for a wider photo or some area that you cropped out in that original. Okay, so when I look at this photo, usually I like to zoom in on it and see if there's any small details that I notice. Right off the bat, there's not a lot that I notice in this photo that's distracting, or it's going to distract me when I'm looking at it. The only thing I kind of notice is a little orb down here. I might try and get rid of that, so I'm going to grab the lasso tool, just kind of roughly circle around it. That was not a good circle. We're going to click that delete button and then content aware fill. I can still see some little residue that it left from where it pulled data from. And now that orb's gone, that looks a lot better, I think, already. We're going to look around here. Usually if I'm doing product photography, I like to look at the product specifically. So when I look at it, I might get a little picky and I see some like really small stuff like this. Let's just go ahead and content aware fill it. These are stars on the bottle, so those ones are supposed to be there. Yeah, other than that, it looks pretty good. I noticed in my girlfriend's glove, there's a little stuff on it, so I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of that. It's not a necessary thing. No one's really going to notice it, but it makes me feel better about the photo. And it doesn't take very long when you're going ahead and just doing content aware fill. So we can zoom out. And we've done that part. That's the first thing I do, is go through and get rid of anything I need to. Next part, I want to throw snow on top of this. So I have a snow overlay that I like to use. Okay, so I opened up my snow overlay. So what we're going to do is go ahead and click Control A, or if you're on Mac, Command A. Copy it, and then we're going to paste it right on top of this. I did a whole video on this on how to add snow over top of photos, but what we're going to do here is go to Edit, Free Transform. I'm going to turn this sideways, make it a little bigger. We're just going to want to cover that photo up completely. Okay, and then we're going to go over here to where it says Normal and click Screen, if I can find it. Okay, so we have that. Now I'm going to make that look a little less harsh because it doesn't really look realistic. So that looks a little better. Now click off of it. And then while you're still selected on that layer, I'm going to click Filter, Blur, and Motion Blur. Okay, now that I have that, I already have it preset for an angle and the distance I want those to be blurred. It's just usually what I like to use. So now that we have that, it looks good. I kind of think I want to soften up with some of these ones towards the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and select that eraser tool. I've already got it set a little bit, so opacity at 34% and the smoothing's at 96%. This just allows me to kind of go over it and then just lightly smoothen some stuff out, make it look a little bit better in certain locations that I think it might be a little too harsh. So we're just going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll zoom in on the bottle. Let's go ahead and bring this brush down a little bit. Now I just like to make sure that I kind of eliminate stuff that's covering up that bottle for the most part. I still want some, but I want to try and leave it a little bit more open because it's product photography and I want that to stand out. Okay, that looks good to me. Now I'm gonna pull it back into Lightroom. Okay, so now that we got this photo back in Lightroom, we're gonna go ahead, I'm gonna throw a preset on it, and then I'm gonna tweak some of the colors, add some gradual filters, and add some circular filters. That's not what it's called. I'm just gonna look what it's called. Radio filters. We're gonna add some radio filters. Okay, so first things first, I started working my new portrait preset pack. Now the reason I like to use portrait presets on product photography is because a company has a certain color scheme for a reason, and you wanna make sure you're making that color stand out. So my portrait presets don't affect colors as much as my landscape ones would. Whereas my landscape ones, I'm trying to make that dreamy atmosphere, make it look good, make it look the way I want. I want to make this bottle pop while still trying to keep my look to it. So we're going to apply a portrait preset. I said that like 5 times. Portrait preset, portrait preset, portrait preset. Got it like 3 times. Anyway, let's go ahead, click into here. I've started working on it. We're going to click this one called Winter. Now, I knew I wanted to use that one because I made it specifically for these products that I was doing photos for. And I started using it and I was playing around with it, and I was using it on different photos as well. I really like the look of it. It just really pops those whites and makes it look a little bit more full. So obviously, this already looks pretty good, but there's a lot of things I want to do to it still. First and foremost, we want to make sure we're doing that lens correction. So I was using my Tamron 70-200. Let's go ahead, click that. So now that's what the photo looks like, non-distorted. Now, what else do we want to do to this photo? Well, before I add any filters or brushes or anything like that, I want to make sure, and I want to emphasize, because I've done this in the past and messed up, that you want to apply all those filters and stuff before you crop. Now, some people might have different opinion, but I have seen to the point where I've cropped something 16:9, so it's skinny, and I make those brush marks, I make it look the way I want, and then later on, without thinking, I know I need to post on Instagram, so I cropped it for 5:4. When I cropped it for 5:4, those brush marks didn't apply, and I didn't notice it in time, and I posted it, didn't look good, I wasn't happy with it, but it was already out there and a lot of people saw it. Anyway, apply all your filters and brushes before you crop it. That's my suggestion. I would do everything before you crop it. I know in the past I used to do the cropping first, but I've learned my lesson. Don't do that. Okay, so when I look at this, I kind of want to make sure everything stays bright and airy. So the background, I don't want to darken up too much, but what I will do to try and make this bottle stand out a little more is take this radio filter, go ahead, surround that bottle with it. Now the reason that I have it make everything dark whenever I use any of my filters is so I know the area that I'm selecting ahead of time. Okay, so what we're going to do is go ahead, double click on that exposure, get it back to 0. This is the way the photo is. Now, I want to bring down that clarity for everything around it because I just want to make everything else a little bit more blurry, just not as much focus on anything. So we're going to go ahead and bring that down a little bit. We'll just play around with it till we find something we like. Okay, I like that. Then I'm going to darken it just a little bit in the background, just because I want those trees to pop a little bit more and, you know, give that balance between the bottle and the background. So let's click off of that. Let's see our before and after. So that's before and after our preset and that filter. Okay, that looks good. Now the next thing I'm going to want to do is go ahead and adjust this label. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and grab another radio filter. And honestly, we can just do this whole bottle because I want to make sure this bottle pops as well. So we're just going to go around this whole bottle, make sure it's at least mostly in there. Then you're going to go ahead and click invert, click off of that. Let's bump that clarity up a little bit, just because it is bottle. I mean, normally I would bump clarity down on any photo, just give it a little more of a dreamy feel. But when it's a product, you want that to stand out and pop, 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 pop. Said that word a lot. So now that we have that, let's go ahead and bring those blacks down a little bit. Not too much. We want to still make sure that we're not affecting these areas too bad. Let's go ahead and bring those whites up. That's looking good. I want to bring that dehaze up a little bit also, just to make that stand out a little bit more. Okay, that's looking good. Now we're going to go ahead and click off of it. Now I notice the label doesn't look exactly the way I want after that, but I don't want to affect the rest of the bottle too much. So what we're going to do is click in. And I will say, if you're doing something like this with a round label, it's really easy. All you have to do is that radio filter and just fill that circle. But because this is more of a diamond shape, we're not going to want to use that because we don't want to affect the bottle any more than we already did. So what you're going to do is go ahead and grab this adjustment brush. Now, I like to start just in the center and just get the easy parts out of the way. See, that label's already, like, it looks a little bit better when you bring that down because it makes it stand out more. What I want to do is go ahead, I think it's those blues that it really brought down. brightened them up also. Go ahead, just highlight all this. I'll fast forward through this part so you guys don't have to watch me highlight all of it. Okay, now that we finally got that whole label highlighted, let's go ahead, get that exposure back to normal. We're gonna bump that clarity up a little bit more. Let's bring those blacks down. So make those pop a little bit. Let's play with the highlights a little bit. I'm gonna bring those down. Contrast. Let's increase that exposure down just a little bit. Okay, that's looking good. We'll turn that saturation back up. Not too much though. Let's see what that looks like. So that already looks a lot better in my opinion, so let's do a quick before and after. So you can see we made that bottle pop a little more. Now what I'm going to do is go ahead and we're going to crop it to make it look the way we want. So let's click that crop button. Now I usually like to crop everything for a client in two different ways if it's vertical. So first I'll crop it 16 by 9. Then I'll just go through. I'll try and make sure that bottle's like center. And I'm not going to making sure it's exactly perfect right now, but that's fairly close. So now you see that that's the first crop that I like to do. So you can see before and after, before and after. So we took the original picture that looked like this one. So we took that and made it look like this. Now that's a photo that I would be proud to throw on my story, send to a client, anything like that. It just looks a lot better and it looks like that environment. I will say don't throw snow on some environment that has a lot of sun or anything. It'll just look weird, it won't look good, it won't work, trust me. Anyway, the last thing that I like to do is crop it in 5x4. That's it. Once I export that 16 by 9, I crop it 5x4, obviously. So we'll go ahead, 4x5, then just click OK. And now we have a photo they can post on their Instagram story and on their Instagram post. This is one of the ones I've already sent over to my client. I didn't add the snow in the first time, so I might send this back over to him. Looks really good. You might also notice, really quick, that this little logo here is what's been on the hat that I've been wearing recently. Let me go grab that. Right there, that one. Do you see the resemblance? That's basically my entire process for how I go about editing a photo. Some might be a little bit more difficult. Some might require a little bit more. Landscape shots definitely take me a little bit longer to edit just because there's so many things that go into it and so many things that I want to change with it.